Trauma. Everyone has it. No one talks about it. It seems easier to stay silent, ignore it, or stuff it than it does to honor it, learn from it, and finally heal. Trauma is debilitating, yet so often we suffer in silence. Trauma is not meant to be battled alone, and we are no longer going to suffer in silence. Together, we are creating a safe place to speak, to share our stories, and grow our strength as we heal. Together, we are giving a voice to those who have been silenced, bringing darkness into light, and letting God use our stories. Today, we find ourselves again. We relight our spark and let it light up the world. Stop SIS is a nonprofit organization dedicated to educating on issues of trauma and trafficking, as well as the amazing power of the healing journey. Welcome to Stop SIS. Hey, you guys. Welcome back to Stop Suffering in Silence. My name is Denise Walsh, and I'm here with co-host Rachel Timothy and a super fun, glittery guest who has been advocating for survivors and educating about all things human trafficking for quite a while, and I'm excited to hear more of her story. She is the CEO, founder, president, all things, for a nonprofit called Warning Lights, whose purpose is to educate, empower, and engage individuals of all ages against the crime of human trafficking. Warning Lights is a preventative approach by raising awareness about human trafficking, arming individuals with the knowledge they need to protect themselves and others. Their mission is to help all people recognize the warning lights of human trafficking, and they're dedicated to their purpose of preventing victims and protecting individuals. In fact, I met her at a function at our high school. She had the opportunity to speak to the kids, which I am excited. I am so glad to hear that conversation is happening in our local high school, but then they offered it to the parents as well. And so I don't have high schoolers, I have middle schoolers, but I showed up because this is a conversation that number one, we know needs to happen more often. And so I'm always grateful to hear when it is. So big Stop SIS welcome to Jenn. Thank you so much for being here.
Yay. I am so excited. Yay!
The crowd goes wild. Well, and you live right here in the Grand Rapids area, which is just so cool to lock arms and just be a loud voice, amplify. So I'd love to hear a bit about your personal story on what got you interested in the topic of human trafficking, and not just interested in you're going to support and be a part, but you decided to start your own nonprofit and do this for a living. So tell us how you got here.
Yeah. So crazy story. I am a PK, a pastor's kid, grew up in the church, all of it. And if you would have asked me when I was younger, if I ever wanted to be a missionary, I would have said, no, thanks. But here I am. So in 2013, which if you do the math really quick, Warning Lights is celebrating 10 years this year, which is mind-blowing to me. Super exciting. But back in 2013, I was at a conference and I heard someone say that human trafficking happens here in America. And I was like, oh, interesting, because I've never heard that before, kind of weird. Then they said that according to the U.S. Department of State, at that point, there was about 800,000 victims every year. I was like, that's a pretty big number. Then the second part of that.
More than COVID, just have to say.
Right. Hello.
Keep going.
That was exactly. Then the second part of that stat is that about 50% of those are minors. Well, that was 10 years ago. The most recent federal human trafficking report has come out, which is dated 2021, and still 55% of victims are minors. So just to give you that perspective. Okay, so when I learned that stat, y'all, I am not a numbers person. I am not a stats person. I am not. studying, all that stuff. Like college social was my game, right? Like I can be a good student, but hearing these conferences, these things, like you hear it and I'm like, oh, I'm not like that person that's like writing everything down. I'm just like, oh, that's interesting. I could not shake that. Honestly, I got ticked off, really mad, because I was like, how is this the second fastest growing organized crime in America today? The fastest growing crime, and targeting kids, teens, and college students. And I just went through elementary, middle, high school, university, and only learned about human trafficking happening in other countries. Like, this is messed up. Like,
How
that's
do we not know about
was.
this? Yeah.
Why is nobody talking about this? Like, immediately I went to, like, I had to sit through how many DARE programs, which was, you know,
Right.
learn to say no to drugs in my education. Yet this is the fastest growing organized crime today. Like, how is nobody talking about this? So honestly, I just kind of got ticked off on the inside and I was like, this is not okay. Like, this is a horrible abuse of a crime and nobody's really talking about it. So then I did what most people would do, and I'm going to share this because there's no shame in this game. I ignored it.
Mhm.
Tried to. I just
Yeah.
went with my life for weeks past that day. And for whatever reason, I just could not shake it. What I say is, like, it lit a fire in my heart. Like,
Yeah.
it lit something, and my
Call it our
righteous,
holy discontent.
yes, righteous anger, right? Like, I was just like ticked off and I was like, God, seriously, like, how is this real? Like, what is going on? And then I experienced him specifically calling me to fight back and protect kids, teens, and college students specifically. I will educate and talk with anybody about this crime, stranger on the corner. I don't care who you are, right? But my heart and my passion and why Warning Lights was started was because I got mad that nobody was willing to talk to our kids about this crime in truth, in love, and just give it to them for what they need to know. So that's where I started. That's where it began. Me just getting ticked off. How's that?
Fantastic.
Well, and
Yeah.
we hear that quite a bit, Rachel. Like, well, people will hear us speak and they have that, like, how is this happening? But
Mhm.
then people don't know what to do with it. And oftentimes, it's all right, a couple weeks go by and oh yeah, now I have a brain cell for it, but there's really nothing they feel led or like they can actively do. But you were like, I'm gonna create something for me to do.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pave the
Well,
way.
you get to know Jenn Amo and you realize pretty quickly I am not a sitter backer. Nope. I am a doer and a leader and a, excuse me, get out of my way. We've got stuff to get done kind of personality. And we kind of joke, like, God was like, Jenn, I gave you a big mouth and we need you to use it. Basically, is where it came out because I was just like so frustrated with the fact that this is something that we need to talk about. This is something that is targeting, everybody thinks it's the naughty kids, the runaways, and I'm like, no, 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 no. If you know anything about Satan, he's going to attack the good kids because those are the ones that are obedient, trying to do what an adult tells them to do. Like I'm like, this is seriously something that is just on a rampage. Well, honestly, back in 2013, I didn't know that. So I literally dove head first into this crime. And some people literally thought I was crazy. I was doing ride along with law enforcement. I went to prison and met with a couple of predators that were in there. I met with FBI, Homeland Security. I started going into bars and strip clubs and meeting these people where they are. And I wanted to be a warning light, not only against this crime, but a light for protection and resources too. Like, y'all, as I said, I'm a pastor's kid. And even in that role, I got judged a lot. And I knew from a young age that judging others did not feel good, was not right. And I was on the wrong end of that more often than what I would have loved to be. So seeing the church, seeing people quick to judge and assume the worst about people that get into these situations, it ticked me off again. Like I'm like, I can't handle this. Like, don't act like we all don't make mistakes, y'all. Like I just couldn't handle it. So I knew I had to do something, but I clueless, absolutely clueless to what that meant or what that looked like in that moment.
So what did you learn diving into education mode? Police, going to strip clubs, riding along, connecting with FBI, Homeland Security.
I learned that this crime looks nothing like what it looks like in the movie Taken normally.
Correct.
um, People ask me all the time, "Are you like a female Liam Neeson?" And I'm like, "Well, I haven't jumped off any bridge onto a moving boat, but so help me,
But I
where that
would.
needs to happen. I'll take off my glitter first, but hold on." No. But so I always just had been associated kidnapping with this crime, like every other general citizen out there. And for those listening, if that's what you think that this crime looks like, yeah, I'm not about to judge you because that's what every media outlet is going to try to make you believe. But
Mhm.
when I started digging in and finding out what this crime actually looks like, so literally, I wanted to talk about the lures and signs of this crime. Like, how does it actually work? Like, to kind of take you back. So, in 2013 is when I learned that stat. And my hubby's a teacher, and we went to Mexico for spring break. And I took a notebook along with us, and I was sitting poolside in Mexico. And I was just sitting there, and I was like, okay, what would I want my kids to know about this crime? And I wish I had the book on me, but I have just doodles full on this page of the how, the when, the where, the why, the who. And then also like warning lights is on there, lures, signs, dangers, temptations. Like it's just a full on doodle. But from that brainstorming sesh, Warning Lights was born that day because I asked myself the questions I would want to know about this crime, but then I had to figure out how to answer them myself because I didn't really know anything about this. So when I met like at the prison with a trafficker, I said, "How did you do this? Like, what did you do?" So all of my lures and signs of our programs, there's nothing made up. And unfortunately, I don't have to make it up because it's that legit that we just see, relationships being the number one tool utilizing and building a false faith and trust in somebody, and then them using that against that person to get them to do things they would not normally do on their own.
Right.
I've been doing this, like I said, for 10 years now. I've worked with hundreds, if not thousand victims, and none of them have been kidnapped. So many of them lived at home, slept in their own beds. Maybe they would be sneaking out because they were forced to in the middle of the night, but it was not a kidnapping situation. I did have multiple cases where some of my victims were considered missing, but they chose to get in the car with that predator. They were not technically kidnapped. And that is a big thing that people need to realize about this crime is that how you perceive it from media or television or movies. No, that's way too risky for these predators on a daily basis. But if I can get to know you and I can chat with you, and what's the easiest way for them to do that these days? Social media, chat apps, gaming, online, right? So we just see that relationship based situation causing a ruckus in what these kids and teens and college students can understand. What's the difference between healthy and unhealthy, right and wrong, because it's just so blurred in their minds than where those boundaries and those lines are.
You
That's
just watch Netflix. I mean, it's like the whole cult, there's very little black and white, like everything goes. And so you can
everything
imagine as
goes.
you're growing up watching this stuff, there isn't clear boundaries and they're not being taught what a healthy relationship looks like.
Yeah. Well, and it is interesting because I actually just watched a Netflix, I don't know, limited series yesterday about a kidnapping situation. And the kidnapper was someone that victim knew. right? So back in my day growing up, we were always taught stranger danger, right? Stranger danger, don't take candy, don't get a ride. But that's not what this looks like. It's not how we need to portray it. It's somebody that usually works their way into your lives in one way or another. But getting kids to understand the difference between what's healthy and unhealthy is something that you have to literally talk through.
For sure. The way that I like to explain it to the kids or to anybody is the perpetrator typically tries to take ownership of the child's heart. And that is like one of the first signs of, something else is coming. There's ownership being done there with the heart. There's grooming, there's manipulation being done. And children, they're gonna say yes because their heart is taken.
Yes, so true. And I feel like most of our kids are good kids, right? They want to be obedient. They want that good attention. They want to be seen. They want to be wanted. And so when someone comes in and yeah, approaches their heart and takes it, like it's a good place for them. They feel like it's where they want to be. They're meeting all their goals, right? Like we all love to be seen and heard and loved and wanted. So again, there's no shame in that game. And that's what I try to tell people is if your kids get caught up into this, it's
Right.
not like we all make mistakes, but these predators are really good at what they do.
Mhm.
And, as we were saying, Rachel, like what I will always say when I'm speaking is that predators are nice until they're not.
Mhm.
So it's not like your kids are going in there and choosing to be friends or talk with or spend time with someone that's mistreating them. No,
Right.
it's that this person is kind and loving and sees them for who they are. So it's just a super tricky situation.
We call
Oh
it
yeah.
wolves in sheep's clothing.
Yes.
Preach. Yep.
Yep. And the way I like to explain that too is they'll be a wolf only to the child they're hurting. They're gonna act like a sheep to everybody else.
Right.
So how are these relationships built online? Because it's easier to imagine a grooming situation in person where they're giving presents or extra attention or hugs or let's go here alone, that kind of thing. But how does somebody groom a child in an online setting?
Yeah. So from my experience, one of my most recent cases is that it started on Instagram. And basically, this person had friended another friend of the victim. So when that, follow me invite came through, the person already had associations with multiple people that this victim knew. That is one of the biggest things is that if someone else has mutual friends, mutual followers, there's this false sense of, oh, they must be safe, they must be okay. But that predator did not know any of them, just started reaching out, and everybody is all about finding their value in how many followers and friends they have these days. So they let anybody and everybody in, regardless of if they truly know them face to face or not, which, if you can't tell, is one of the things that we talk about in our warning lights programs, because basically friended that person, started chatting, chatted for weeks. That's another thing is this isn't overnight. Grooming usually doesn't happen overnight. I mean, for some victims, they get attached overnight.
Mm-hmm.
Predators are really good at investing time into this. They 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 get more out of it with more time that they put in. The more that they can, own that heart, as Rachel said, it's the more they get out of it. So was chatting, long story short, one night, super late, being silly, started sending back and forth pictures, which led to inappropriate pictures being sent. And as soon as the victim sent that first picture, it was revealed that the predator, who he thought was another 15-year-old boy, was actually a woman in her 40s who said, well, if you don't do what I want you to do, I'm going to send this to your list of friends, and sent him an actual list of names of his friends because she had been following who's liking, who's commenting, who's sharing all of his posts for the past how many weeks. And now she's got an actual list of people and she's friends with them. So can she easily send it to them? Yes, she can. And in that moment, she was asking for money and he followed her instructions on how to download the Cash App, go find bank statements of his parents, attach the bank account, transfer money so that it would be deleted. And as we all know, as soon as that money went through, the picture was not deleted and more money requested happened almost immediately with another list of friends that it would go to, including the first one, if he didn't give more money. It was in that moment that he knew that he was in trouble. I mean, I think he knew he was in trouble before that, but it was in that moment that he decided to get help, reached out to his mom, who I then heard from, and we got law enforcement. We got everybody involved that we needed to because money had been exchanged. And that process was devastating for him. And that mom was like, Jen, we've talked about this so many times. And I said, you have to understand this person is really good at what they do. Like I say, you get easily bamboozled by this. And that's not the issue. Yes. Did you friend somebody that you don't actually know face to face? Yes, you did. Would I recommend against that every single time? However, the fact that you friended them is not the mistake. The fact that they targeted you and were trying to use you and then turned on you, that's a mistake that you made, but it's not unforgivable. And we have to stand behind our kiddos and say, it's how we get help. I'm so thankful that you felt confident enough to speak up to me and come get help to me. Granted, I wish you would have done it before you transferred the first $1,000, but besides that, right? It's just our kids. The world is so quick to shame, blame, throw guilt that they just don't know who they can trust. And that's a problem.
Do you know, was she caught?
She was not. She had multiple identities, I mean, for anybody that's listening, but there's so many IP addresses, so much stuff that was happening that as soon as she found out that there was action being taken from all sorts of different activities, honestly, one of the other friends kind of reported it to her unknowingly, like basically said, are you really a lady? Like, so then she knew that something had been found out, somebody shared something, and she was on.
Shucks. But yeah, I mean, it's just rare. It is rare now to find and catch these predators, unfortunately.
Well, and you think they're transferring money to somewhere, but it doesn't have to be anything real. It could be a PO box. It could be PayPal that's not connected. You know, you just.
Oh, they know how to do it in undercover ways. They're trained.
They create accounts that are just for this one-time use. And then as soon as that money comes in, they just withdraw and cancel the account. And there's nowhere for us to go, you know, fake
Right.
fake names. Like, again, they're really good at what they do.
Mm-hmm. There's an app on Instagram now that is like a youth filter. I'm sure you guys have seen it.
Yes.
Rachel, you should do a reel on that because
I
that's.
thought about that with the inner child type thing.
Oh, yeah. I was thinking like a predator can pretend to be 15.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's just I'm sure that's not the only place that have these voice changes or physical changes. So you don't really even know who you're talking to.
Yep.
Agreed. Yeah, for sure.
Well, I know. So my situation recently was with my 9-year-old daughter. This is the second time now we've caught her talking to strangers. And the first time, I kid you not, was on like this Barbie interactive play app. And at that point, she was 8. She really couldn't read or write all that well. Like I didn't think, and there's no pictures that could be sent. But when I found it, the predator was a grown man who was telling her like she just wanted to play Barbies. She wanted to play interactive Barbies, and he was trying to make it X-rated. He was saying, if you don't do this, I'm going to kill your pretend daughter. All these just outrageous things that to an 8-year-old, it breaks her heart. And so like we got rid of all of that, got rid of devices. We're now a year later and she's playing Rec Room. Have you heard of that one?
I have.
And once again, she was trying to play one of the games in Rec Room, and a man started messaging her and telling her in very gross details what sex is. And again, she was too scared to tell us. Both times we caught it. And her and I are kind of coming up with an idea of ways that we can fight back and do kind of a initiative together to stand up for kids and help them fighting back with this. And so I'm hoping that'll give her a sense of strength. But what I learned when I went through and I found what she was messaging is even though I see her with friends all the time, I didn't realize how lonely she really is. And so when somebody starts messaging her on there, she just wanted a friend.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is like, again, like our good kids, right? But we all want to be seen. We all want to be valued. We all want to be chosen. Like it's okay to have those feelings because we all deal with them. But when someone starts turning it uncomfortable or wrong, we need to be able to separate that, right? And bless her sweet heart and soul. She's so young.
Young.
So it's just like she's probably not even like this can't even be real because this person I'm 9 years old. Why would some guy be wanting to talk to me? Like it doesn't really make sense. But then once you start that conversation, like you said, your heart is just like, well, at least he's talking to me, right? My mom was always like, sometimes bad attention is better than no attention at all, right? So you kind of grab into that situation. But one of the things that I've recently been kind of dealing with is well, I'll just tell you a couple of weeks ago, I did a Warning Lights Kids session for a group of inner city middle school girls. And anywhere from ages, they were mostly fifth and sixth grade. So like, 9, 10, 11 years old. And I come in with my glitter from head to toe, my purple hair and my who I am. This is who I am, take it or leave it, kind of attitude, which might be offensive to some people, but it's who God made me. So there you go. Anyways, I just was talking through like, if there's something that happens, you need to talk to somebody. You need to share that. Well, that evening on the way home in the bus, one of the girls who was 10 years old, she told the counselor, the director of the program on the way home, 2 situations where she had been abused. They had signs of it and they knew of it, but she never felt comfortable to talk about it. And she said, well, Miss Jenn said that I could talk about it and that it wasn't my fault. Well, no one had ever told her that before. And so pouring into these kids and letting them know, like, especially where my heart goes for your daughter, like, it's not your fault. It's not you, but the huge blessing and praise out of that situation is that, yes, this young girl told her director about the situations, but the happiest thing that I have received in a long time was the next morning I received a message from that director. And she said, the girl's grandma messaged me this morning. And when she woke up, she said, Grandma, I just feel so much lighter today after being able to tell someone. She's like, this is so good. And my heart just burst with joy because she's 10 and she's been carrying this burden for how many years? And she's got so much of her life to go, but yet it was so heavy and weighing down on her. And that's where, like, I mean, Rachel, you've been through this, this, you talked to your daughter about it, but still sometimes parents need to understand that you can talk to your blue in the face, but unless you have somebody come in from the outside that can spit out stories for days as to how this has affected somebody, your kids they hear you, but they don't always hear you, right?
Oh, they think you're overprotective and
you're over exaggerating. It's not for real. So that's where the Warning Lights programs have really come into play, I feel like, because parents are like, well, my kids already know. And I'm like, well, they can answer all the questions, but do they feel comfortable to come to you if something happens? And, we had this one time where we had parents in one room and kids in another. And we said, how many of you would feel comfortable telling your parents if something was going on? And 2 out of the 50 kids raised their hands. And those were like, why? You can even come to me and they're like, no, I don't want you to yell at me. I don't want to get in trouble. So that's the reality of it, is sometimes it's just having somebody else who hears you, understands you, believes you, and can help you sort through the truth is where our ministry, where our organization has really seen like growth and just so much beneficial coming out of that.
Yeah. I hear two things. Number one, sometimes the person they tell is not their parents. So or what if the person that's hurting them is their parents, right? So they need other healthy adults in their life so they have options. And I think that's hopefully right where youth groups come in and teachers at school and opportunities like this to at least have the door open, like you can talk about hard things. But then the health, that the healing that comes from speaking that truth, that is going to save this 10-year-old years of therapy.
Well, not just
to share it and be believed.
Be believed. Yes, exactly. And action was taken. And her grandma believed her.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah.
So what are some of the warning lights that you share to parents or students? Like, what should people be aware of?
Yeah. So, the signs are always changing. And as you guys know, like every child is different, right? So you might have one child who responds in one way and the same thing is happening to your other child, but they're not responding in the same way with anything. So it's always important to understand that there's not one sign. But parents ask me all the time, Jen, what is the number one thing that we should look out for? And hands down, what the most common thing that I have seen is change in personality, including isolation.
Mm-hmm.
The top two things, because as Rachel said earlier, someone owns their heart. So now when you love somebody, quote unquote, when you love them, when they're caring for you, they have your attention and they're your go-to when you're having a good day. They're your go-to when you're having a bad day. They're your go-to when you are mad. They're your go-to when you're whatever the situation is, right? So for parents, when you're used to seeing your kid being frustrated and having a little fit in front of you because of something that happened at school or something that happened in a game or something, when that changes and you don't see that personally anymore. Now, granted, I'm not saying those actions are correct or great, but I'm just saying like the isolation that we see happen is one of the biggest signs that I can say something is probably going on. And that can be for any age.
Mm-hmm.
Can be for all ages, actually. So even in an unhealthy marriage or situation for adults, we see isolation pulling them from what their normal is and making them act in a different way because whatever threats or manipulation that perpetrator is stating to them, whatever they're being almost blackmailed with, that is different for every single person. But pulling away from what's healthy is that predator's number one goal in those situations, to make them not needed, not necessary. I'm all you need. And they are really good at making you feel that way.
It's interesting to think about the fact that the more emotion my kids show to me in the house, whether it's happiness or sadness or whatever, the better. Because it sounds like not only will they physically be removed, like isolating in their room, but emotionally be shut down and stunted in a sense where they're so distracted that they're not, and maybe feeling like they're hiding. So they don't want to show that type of any emotion to me or in the house.
Yeah. And parents have said to me, I knew something changed because they would just snap at me or they would just react to me and they would just be instantly mad at me for asking a question about how their day went. And that's all part of it, right? We know as soon as that change happens in that personality or they start pulling away, and it doesn't have to be a trafficking situation online. It could be somebody bullying. It could be somebody, but there's something going on that we want to figure out the source of that. I do a lot of all school assemblies and I will do one all day long. However, when I can get into that classroom setting, I love it so much more because I'm eyeball to eyeball and I can pick up on these triggers. Honestly, ladies, I have had chairs thrown at me. I've been cussed out. People stormed out of the room and slammed. But this is what I say to those teachers who come running up and they're like, I'm so sorry. I'm like, no, 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 no.
Yeah.
I can't help them if I don't know they're hurting. But they just showed me that they're hurting and I can help that. So it doesn't, I mean, I can dodge a chair being thrown at my head all day long, but I can't help a heart that's been so hardened to what truth is that I don't see it. But as soon as I see that break in that heart, or I can see those tears or that reaction, I can help that, right? Like I can jump on that. So in those moments, as parents, if they're listening, like if you have that situation and your kids are just on the attack or on the defense or saying things that you're like, oh my word, that's so hurtful. What is that reason? There's something there. There's something there. And if they won't talk to you, get them into somebody that they will talk to, because and I'm not even talking professional. I'm talking call auntie so-and-so, call whoever you need to if you don't want to talk to a professional, and just get a conversation going.
Rachel, what would you say your warning signs were?
So I will say this, we learned a little bit from the first situation because I didn't pick up on it for 2 weeks. This time we picked up on it within a day or two because I'm checking their devices all the time. With Rec Room, I'm not sure if I was misunderstanding or what, but when she first got it, I don't think there was messaging capabilities, but then she came to me and asked if she could upgrade because she wanted to play more games, and she gave me some of her birthday money. And so I upgraded it, not realizing I was unlocking the messaging capabilities. Should have looked further, but she likes to play in her room by herself. And our rule is you can't have your door shut, but now, I mean, you're not playing, no kid is playing anywhere except in the living room if they're playing a game. Like, but see, I don't want to go to extremes either, because I know that's crossing their mind. When mom finds out, she's going to take my device away and I'm not going to get to play with my friends anymore. So I'm trying to be cool, but on the inside, like, I was 9 years old when my abuse started and she's 9 years old. And when I saw what that man wrote to her, it was hard. It's hard.
Well, and I think you're so good, Rachel, in bringing up the fact that it's about setting boundaries, right? Taking things away as punishment is not always the best way to train up our kids. It's talking through what's right and wrong and creating that boundary. And if somebody crosses that boundary, then what do we do? And whether it's you who crossed that boundary by accident or on purpose, whatever, or someone else doing that, it's in creating boundaries that we see the line being drawn, right? And sometimes it's me talking about how in this family, the boundary is over here, but in this family, the boundary is closer. And it doesn't matter, whatever is right for your family, but a healthy relationship will respect that boundary. So if you go over to someone else's house and their boundaries are way more stricter than yours, you need to obey their boundaries. That's what's healthy for them. If they come over to our house, then they know our boundaries and this is what's happening here, right? But I love how you didn't take it away, because then that only creates more of a situation where you're the bad guy, that person's the good one. It's important for parents to understand, like, this isn't us against our kids. This is us with our kids. We have to be a team. And how do we do that? We have to work together.
So this is really fascinating to me, because I think this black and white, right or wrong, is a super interesting conversations for parents and families to have. What is our boundary? And then practicing, what do I do if and when it gets crossed? Because again, I can say all day long what I think I would do until I'm in a situation and now all of a sudden I'm frozen and in shock a little bit, right? And so practicing and getting some of that muscle memory of, no, I'm calling my mom right now, or no, I mean, whatever the situation is, I think that's a really cool way to prepare kids, because you're making it clear and you're helping them to understand what they would do if that happens.
Yeah, and I think like when I'm doing a parents training, we talk about having the ability to respond and not react. Because your reaction is going to be, what? We talked about this. Well, are you kidding me? What is going on? Blah, 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 right? That's where our hearts want to go because we're scared. We want to protect them. And that's totally natural. But in that moment, if you react to them, you're just pushing them away. We want to respond, to be like, I'm so glad that you came to me. I am a little in shock right now, but we're going to work through this, right? It's okay to be honest. Honesty is where we want to go. We don't want to act like it's nonchalant, but if you respond versus react, we create that personal protection bubble that only gives us what we need as a team within that family. And it's so, so important.
Yeah. I wonder how, like, the conversation even of grooming, and even using it as a teaching tool, as in, this is how they got to your heart. I wonder how aware, that teenagers could really be about that.
Yeah. I mean, that is one of the things that we talk about, is the grooming process, and how you don't become BFFs with someone overnight. Even if you someone new who's a friend, like what happens? How do you get to know people? This is what I say. This is what I ask them. I'm like, if we sat down for coffee right now, how would you go about getting to know me more? And they say, I'd ask you questions. Exactly. Predators ask a lot of questions. They are going to want to dig into information about you, and you learn all about you because they care so much, right? But that's how they work. And this grooming process can take weeks. It can take months. I've got some victims that took years before their predators flipped on them. Anybody that's been in a relationship for years with somebody, you're going to believe that to be legit. So this isn't a situation where, again, you have to feel bad if you get caught up into something, because again, they are really good at what they do.
I feel like too, a lot of times we have a tendency to judge the survivor based on their coping skills. But their coping skills, like you said, with the throwing of the chairs or what their anger, that's your sign that something's not okay.
Yes, yes. And everybody's different, right? Like I said. So sometimes they go into such a complete isolation that you don't even hear a peep from them.
Mm-hmm.
Not normal. That's not who they are. So you ask them what's wrong, and they're like, oh, I'm just not feeling good today. My next question is, physically or emotionally? Because dig into that, because so many people will be like, oh, okay, you're just not feeling good. Well, it's not physical. It's that they have this weight of emotion that they just feel nauseous. Like, and sometimes it is physically nauseous, but they just need someone to care and see them through, like, the shield that they've put up, right?
Mm-hmm.
The thing too is that when you see signs, when you see things, a lot of people are quick to judge that it's a choice in action.
Yes.
Oh boy. But anybody who knows that you've been in a tough situation, sometimes your reaction is uncontrolled, just like Denise was saying. Like, sometimes when you see something going on, the way that you react to it is not normal, but you're caught, right? You're like off guard, and I'm in the minute. And so in that same concept, when we see a response or a reaction from someone who's being caught or, groomed or abused, we have to understand that that might not be their choice of how they're reacting, but that's their cry for help without literally saying, help me.
Correct. Yep. I mean, I think of people addicted to drugs, and everybody's back there, well, they're a druggie. I mean, they got it, they had it coming. No, you would be a druggie too if you were going through what they went through. I guarantee it, because you can't survive without some sort of a coping mechanism to numb that sort of pain. You literally, and they don't feel any other way out.
Yep.
Get me started.
I hear you, girl. I'll sit here
The
and listen
holy
to you all
discontent.
day.
Ugh.
Rachel, what warning signs did you, I mean, I guess I don't know if people picked up on it when you were a youth, when you were, 13, 14, 15. What could they have seen, or what did they see? Or what maybe did they miss?
I mean, I think so. People saw me cutting. They knew I was cutting, but it was almost like some buried their head to it. Some, it seemed like they thought somebody else would do something about it. Like they kind of passed the buck off to somebody else. I had suicidal conversations and thoughts and cutting of my wrist and other behaviors. I was up and down depending on where my abuser was. My emotions matched how he was treating me at that time. And then alone time with him. He wanted alone time with me all the time at school. So, I mean, it's really hard too when you are the victim at that time and you see what appears to be obvious signs of hurting and nobody's picking up on it. And you begin to wonder, what's wrong with me? Or is this normal?
Right. Because if this wasn't normal, somebody would stop it, and nobody's stopping it.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that is one of the things. So if someone listening to this is faith-based, I call it the Holy Spirit. If you're not faith-based, we'll talk about your gut instinct, right? But there's things that we turn away from every single day that we see, where we're probably should have stepped in, should have said something, should have followed up on it. But we turn the other way because our society has taught us to be selfish and to only think of ourselves. And it's not worth, we don't have the time to get involved with somebody else to deal with their problems. We've got enough of our own problems, blah, 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 blah. The matter of the fact is that we are all called to care for each other. And whether we're the family of God or we are in a community together, we have to protect ourselves and we need to stick up for each other. And if we don't come alongside of each other, we are doing nothing else but harming ourselves, because this is happening. This crime is happening in the community where you are. I can guarantee it.
Yep.
You see something, if you suspect something and you choose to not make the call, step in, you can even call anonymous these days. Like, come on now. Like, there's no risk on your part. Like, if your gut or the Holy Spirit is telling you that something is wrong with a scenario, you might not understand what to do, but hello, there's 3 ladies here that could help figure out where we need to go for this. There's other people in the community. There's people that would know, and just make the call, send the email, reach out to them on social media and be like, hey, I saw this. Is there any suggestions that you would say of what I can do to go about this? Because we have to be the voices for these people who are being silenced. We have to. We are called to be that voice, and we need more voices because this crime is not slowing down. I'm just, people ask me all the time, Jen, what can we do? And I'm like, if nothing else, if you see something, say something, which I know is like the cliche of this crime, but legitly, like, if nothing else, if you see something, say something.
Yes.
To that person directly, or make that anonymous phone call or reach out. Like, it could save a life, hands down. Hands down.
I heard a story recently of this girl who was taken into trafficking and at a hotel, and she fought and ran away. And what she said when she got into the daylight, you know what I mean, and like in a crowd, was people looked at her and said, what is this hoodlum doing? Rather than saying, why is this child hurting? And I just think if we have eyes to see the heart of these kids, of these teens, of these college students who don't want to be in this situation and need a bridge to get out, we will say something, because we won't pin it on them and say they are just an addict, or they just came from a bad family, or they just don't have money, or they're just whatever excuse we say that would justify this behavior. It's saying, no, they need a hand, they need someone to support them and get them out.
Mine was she's just an attention seeking PK.
Which there's a lot of ways to get attention, and cutting is usually not the first choice.
I was told I didn't
Let's
cut
be
deep
real.
enough.
You didn't cut deep
Literally,
enough. Oh,
I didn't
geez.
cut deep enough for it to be considered what they would call cutting.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
But you were also never, I mean, I think that's the thing is there was never any support. There was never, let's go get counseling. Let's go figure out the root. Let's go. It was just.
Yes, it was. Sorry.
Well, and I think
Yeah,
that
you're
is one of
allowed.
the
Go for it, girl. Get it out.
I think that's one of the things about this crime that people are misinterpreting about this crime is because it's associated, especially sex trafficking, with prostitution, with that sort of lifestyle, quote unquote. But the reality of it is human trafficking is when somebody is forced, fraud, coerced into this. So you need to put that into perspective. If you were being forced, tricked, or bribed to drink poison, would you not step in for that person if they were being, you saw that? So why? Because it's a sex crime, most commonly, do we take the perception that they're doing it by choice? There's so much that needs to be taught about this crime. Like, and the fact that you might have someone who is choosing to use their body for feeling better about themselves. Very next time, if they're forced into it, tricked into it, or bribed into it, that makes them a victim of this crime. You can choose to tell a white lie all day long. And then as soon as you tell the big lie, people are all up in arms, right? You have to understand that this sin, regardless of where it looks in your perception, is just equal to everything that you do every day. So whether they're choosing this lifestyle or being forced into it, you have to be able to step in and fight for what is right. I don't care what it is. That's what we're called to do.
And I think if they're choosing it, it's because they've been abused when they were a kid and it's all they know. It's what their worth is. You know what I mean? Like that's all they can think of. And so then it's not a choice.
Exactly. And that's where, like, to be totally honest, some of my girls that work in the strip clubs, they're going to school, but they're like, I have nothing to put on a resume. I don't even know how to make a resume, Jen. I don't know how to do any of this. So what is an easy way for me to make money and be in control of my schedule is to go dancing or choose to sell my body. And when you put that into perspective, like, they just don't have anybody to come alongside of them and help show them the way that things get done, because everyone has turned their back because they assume their choices are their own.
They're labeled.
They're not. Yes, agreed.
All right. So I'll segue.
I
have a question though. Do
Denise.
you do if you guys are in Michigan, if you have a church, if you have a school, get with Jen. She does, as you can see, school education events, parent education events, small group classes. Do you do things on Zoom for those that are not in Michigan, or what are some of the options that you provide through your nonprofit?
So depending on the situation, honestly, we travel anywhere and everywhere. We are all over this nation, and I am all over traveling all the time. We do have some Zoom options, but they're not my favorite because I can't see your eyeballs and I can't interact as well. And so I really try to avoid that situation. I'd much rather get on a plane and come to your church, come to your school, come to your business, come to wherever you are, your GEMS group, your Girl Scout, your Boy Scout, I don't care where you are, and help educate and protect. And one of the things that we do too is I make sure that I state out loud, just because I'm getting back on a plane today, or just because I'm walking out these doors today, my offer to be a resource for you does not end. This is not a one and done. And I have had students who I went to their schools 6 years ago who are now off at state college somewhere or at a trade school or working in a job, who have emailed me 5, 6, 7 years later saying, remember when you came to my school and you were talking about this scenario? Is this what you were talking about? And I'm like, yes. Like, we are not a one and done kind of scenario. Absolutely.
And you have a newsletter that people can connect with. You guys go to her website, warninglights.org, and you'll be able to sign up. You'll see all the programs. You can connect with her, but then also tell us a bit about the newsletter people can join.
Yeah. So the newsletter is our quarterly newsletter. So it's not even monthly coming at you, but it is something that we really try to keep everybody up to date on, the latest lures, because they're always changing, some new signs or some new ways that we're seeing this crime being brought in front of our kids' faces. We have a segment that we call What's Happening. It's my favorite. And we talk about the latest social media online apps that predators are using. I get parents all the time. So one of the latest ones was gas, right? Is this something my kids are wanting to get on it? Everybody's using it. Is it okay? And we'll try to help keep you up to date on all of that.
Did you say gas?
Gas. Yes.
GAS?
Yes. It's a chat app.
It's a what app?
Chat.
Oh,
Yeah.
the things you learn. Okay.
Right. So you can sign up for email option, but honestly, if you put in your physical address, we will send you a hard copy of our newsletter, which is my preferred way. So don't think that we're going to save the organization money. No, no, no. I want to send you the newsletter because that way we can have you read it. And then when a parent in your Sunday school, your small group at your work says, oh, my daughter, my son is dealing with this, you'll be like, hey, read this, right? And pass it along, which is super, it's the best way to raise awareness, right? Just talking about this crime. So it's a great way to just protect others in your circle if need be.
I have two last questions for you. The first question is, have you seen an increase in schools wanting and churches wanting to talk about it over the past 10 years?
All right, Denise, I'm going to be very honest with you.
Okay.
Public schools have welcomed me in like nobody's business. Churches and private schools have fought me left and right.
Wow.
Topic we want to talk about. This is not a topic that we feel they're scared of it. And honestly, as a PK, as a believer, it breaks my heart and soul because I can tell you that literally I experienced God calling me into this ministry. And if he's worried about it and he's calling people to be missionaries to fight this crime, we as believers should be doing nothing but doing what we can to help protect our kids, families, communities from it. That's the honest answer.
Okay. Well, there's no
There
other
it is. I'm not trying to offend anybody, but that's the reality of it. So unfortunately, like I can get into, secular businesses and schools and community events and anything. They're like, yeah, let's talk about it. But I really wish our faith-based communities would really grab onto this a little bit more. I know it's a hard topic, and I know that there's some fear that comes along with that, and is in talking to our kids about something that we don't want them to know about. But the easiest way for me to relate it is I'm like, as parents, you teach your kids not to touch the stove because it's hot. You tell them about the danger so they don't get burned. Well, this is something that is coming after them, and we're just talking about the danger, the crime, so they don't get burned by it. Like, not a place of instilling fear whatsoever. It's empowering them with the knowledge and tools that they need to be able to stand up and be bold enough to say, nope, I'm not doing this. Nope, I'm worth way more than what you're putting on me. Nope, I'm not going to believe those lies, because we give them the tools and the awareness they need to stay protected.
And then my last question is, what app do you recommend to monitor electronics?
So there's a great handful of them that are great. But my hands down, my number one recommendation is going to be Bark. B-A-R-K, like the dog. The biggest complaint that I hear about this is, Jen, it takes so long to get set up. And my response
I'm in the middle of setting it up right now. I don't know the answers to the questions. I have to go dig around.
Yep. So it does take some time setting up, but bottom line is your child's safety worth that to you? Because let's be real. But once you get everything set up, I love that, because like Denise, when you have people come over to your house and they sign on to your Wi-Fi, you get to control them through Bark on your Wi-Fi. So any device that comes into your house, you get to protect those who are under your roof. And if you want to offer rewards because somebody unloaded the dishwasher or picked up their room or on their own, then you can give them more time online. There's a reward system, but Bark also hands down is the best one that I've seen, who literally updates and is always working to be on the cutting edge of what is out there. Many other ones are super great, but not as quick to get on board. And as anybody knows, with online being so fast, as soon as something is created, our predators are there too. So it's super important for us to try to be on that front line of that.
Awesome. I am now motivated to finish the installation process.
Atta
Rachel,
girl.
is there anything you want to add?
I'll ask my question when we get off, because it's kind of a little bit of a different topic, but
Well, now everyone's gonna wonder.
Yep.
Love it.
All right. Well, you guys check out warninglights.org. And if you are the leader of anything that connects with kids at any age, college, elementary, middle, high school, get Jenn to speak to them and their parents. I had the opportunity to hear you speak, and you're right. God gave you a bold voice. You're clear, you're direct, and you're empowering. And so I just want to encourage anyone and everyone who has an open door to this conversation to invite Jenn in to speak to your kiddos and your parents, because the parents need to know what to look out for, so they can be a part of that boundary setting. So thank you, Jenn, for saying yes to that holy discontent 10 years ago. I'm grateful to have you in my own backyard speaking to our students. That's really great to hear. And I know the next 10 years will, as much as you're like, I want to say that we won't need you anymore. That would be great. But hopefully, because of your boldness, there will be children and kids who have been taught and have the courage to say no and tell their parents because of what they learned with you. So thank you for saying yes, and keep doing it. It's good work.
Yes.
Thank you for having me. And I appreciate you guys allowing me to share a little bit about who we are and what we do.
Absolutely. All right, you guys, check out Warning Lights website, sign up for their newsletter, just be a part of this conversation, because if it's not us speaking it, nobody will be. And it's on us as parents to lead the way. So have an awesome day, and we'll see you next week. Thank you so much for listening to this powerful episode of Stop Suffering in Silence. If you are interested in booking Rachel to speak at your school, your church, or on your podcast, then please email openblindeyes@protonmail.com. If you are interested in sponsoring a survivor on their healing journey and would like to donate to Stop SIS, then please check out the link in the description box or show notes below, or you can email stopsis@protonmail.com. And finally, if you are currently suffering in silence, or you know somebody who is, whether they're dealing with a current trauma or one from the past, then we will always recommend that you reach out to your local resources and find a counselor that you can trust, because nobody is meant to suffer alone. Have an amazing week, and thank you for being here.